You just got your asses whipped by a bunch of goddamn nerds. Nerds!
Welcome back, everybody, to our 10th episode. And I'd like to thank everybody, the 95 subscribers we currently have. We're 5 away from 100. Thank you for the likes. Thank you for the views. Thank you to those who have subscribed. If you have not yet, please do us a favor and subscribe. Comment as well. Email is in the bio. If you have anything to add, anything you want to see, please feel free, comment, email, anything to get in contact with us. Just let us know. Today is a year from when we got X-Men 97, and it was kind of a blast from the past to continue from the comic book from the show in the late 90s. It was a continuance of that popular series, and to celebrate a year of that being out, and we're probably another year away from season 2, we kind of wanted to do our own little review of that since we started our podcast after that finished. But since it was so well received, we just wanted to go over it and kind of give our takes and our thoughts and what it meant to us, because it was, like I said, it was just so well received by everyone. You don't hear anybody say anything bad about this show, and it was kind of Marvel's first dive into animation after they've been doing these live action movies for so long. They've kind of gotten they kind of dipped their toe in the water of animation now. So I'm gonna start off with Pooba this time, and let me just overall, we'll have different questions here and there, but overall, just your breakdown of the show.
This show is amazing, and it really did follow suit from the previous X-Men. I did feel like it was a continuation. I love the revamped intro song. I loved the way they depict the X-Men without Xavier. I enjoyed everything. Every episode was fulfilling to me. The season felt rushed. It felt like they stuck what we normally got from X-Men, which is about 26 episodes per season, and we only got 10. So I felt like they put 3 seasons into one. But I think they did a great job of character telling this, the characteristics of the X-Men one by one, very similar to what Creature Commandos kind of did for each of their characters. And even though we knew these characters already from the previous X-Men, I think they did a really good job of telling a story. They were able to break our hearts. I was emotional, and I know we'll get into that, but I think that with what they had going on, and I think this is all happening during the strike by the writers. So there was a whole lot of different things going on. I know that Disney canceled like shows like Willow and things of that nature during this time. And they were kind of forced to do it, and in a sense. And I think the writers put as much as they could in it, thinking they might get fired, and I think that's what did happen. So I enjoyed it. It was comforting to see the X-Men that I love and know on animation. Definitely a must watch. Definitely something you would rewatch. It's rewatchable, so it's a phenomenal story. The only hiccup that I have for it is I think that in knowing the X-Men and reading X-Men, Uncanny X-Men, Excalibur, the New Mutants, and reading those storylines, and the storylines that they put in this season, it's like 3 different stories going on. But I enjoyed the show in the sense of them coming now and knowing that we're going to get a second season of this, knowing also that the person that wrote the first season of this, I can't wait for season 2. And there's a lot of people that weren't into X-Men that became because of the show. So phenomenally, I think, written, rushed, but man, they did a phenomenal job with the characters in this X-Men 97.
Oh,
Well, for me, let's start in the beginning. Back in the days, on television, you had to catch your cartoons, right? We didn't have platforms where we can get cartoons on demand or be able to even binge any cartoons. So this X-Men, they titled it 97 because during that time of 95, 96, 97, when X-Men was out, it was only shown on Fox television. And I had a VCR. That's a video cassette recorder. And I used to record these episodes because the animation was terrible. I mean, really hard to watch, but the stories kept me glued to it. So fast forward, Marvel comes out on D3 and says, hey, by the way, we're going to reboot X-Men. And I wasn't too excited for it. I thought to myself, oh, they're going to ruin this. Even though in the Fox episode, season 1 was amazing. Season 2 was phenomenal. And season 3 was trash, just straight basura, garbage. I thought to myself, well, they are the best thing they can do is have good writing. But if they tweak the animation, I might be able to enjoy this. Man, let me tell you, when I got to see X-Men 97, I was blown away because they hooked me up with the animation. They made it more bearable to watch. And secondly, they they doubled down on their storylines. And holy smokes, overall, I was impressed that they were able to keep the same kind of I don't want to say the same word, but the same kind of tone that they had back in the 90s and kept it here and showing the X-Men, it being the first X-Men from Disney that they finally get back the X-Men. Overall, I thought it was just straight up phenomenal.
For me, this, I was excited once they announced it, and I wasn't, and I tried to watch the older ones, and I couldn't get through it. I couldn't get through it, and I tried to do it before this one came out. I couldn't do it, but I was excited for this one because I knew, of course, now things are easier. There's more technology for the animation to be smoother, to be better. And to just use it as an example, if you look at Family Guy, you look at their early episodes and you look at their episodes now, you can see, and it's not as, it's been on for 20 years, so you can see how they progressed with their animation. Same thing applies here. And like Ho said, the story is just, there were a couple episodes for me that I felt that were filler episodes, that I would have been all right without them. But I don't think that makes it a bad series. It's a phenomenal series. Like Puba said, rewatchable. I've watched it twice. Plan to watch it again when the next season comes out. From what I understand, the voice acting is being done right now, for season 2. And they left us with a cliffhanger, but it's just overall excellent. And I'm glad they were able to kind of take us back to our youth by continuing this from 97, and hopefully it's opened the doors for other ones to be continued with Disney and with Marvel animation. But I'll start with Puba here. Episode 1, they're fighting like a militant group called the Friends of Humanity, FOH. And they went to rescue Sunspot. And they noticed that they're using Sentinel technology. Like, this is a group using technology that Sentinels use. what was your first impression when you saw Cyclops?
Whew. Yeah, Cyclops was definitely shined in that first fight scene, and they showed his ability not only to fight, but his also ability to lead in the X-Men, because there's no Xavier, right? We're coming into a new era of X-Men without Xavier. Nah, man, Cyclops was the best one on that first opening fight scene. It was dope how the Sentinels kind of are being weeded away, but the technology behind it was still being used. And it doesn't stand for F out of here. Yeah. So the F of which is
I found that funny.
But no, I think overall, right? Because you see Storm as well using her powers. It was pretty dope there. So you get to see the X-Men the way post, training out of that danger room that they come out of. That first fight scene kind of shows that how cohesiveness they are fighting with each other. I thought it was a great way to kind of, because the problem with the X-Men is that it's really not the villains. It's not really the other mutants. I think we fight against humanity, against our differences. And I think that first fight scene sets the tone for what the X-Men really have to deal with. And it's humanity. And it's probably like, F out of here, humanity. Allow the mutants to be who they are. But man, no, you're absolutely nail on the head. Cyclops stole the show. Cyclops stole the show. It's the best we've ever seen Cyclops. And overall, just that first scene, it's the best I've ever seen the X-Men. And I'm talking about the movies. I'm talking about the prior animated series. This is the best adaptation of the X-Men. And I got that right from the jump in that first scene.
So Cole, X-Men, obviously we know what the X in X-Men stands for. It's for Xavier. How did you look at it when you're like, there's no Charles Xavier here at the beginning when we first started watching this again? There's no Xavier. How did you see that? Like, how did that hit you?
Well, for me, at first, I was happy because that's more or less how the season 3 ended on the Fox series, where Xavier was actually taken away. He went to another planet, so he wasn't even around. And for them to, I was excited because to continue this story, I thought like back then those storylines were really good. It was just it was losing steam, so they went a different route, Fox did. And then eventually, once Disney and Marvel got the opportunity to get the rights back, they were like, they see the greatness in what X-Men 95, 96, 97 brought you. So to bring that back, it was like, we have to continue this story because it was just so good. I was really, really, really good with it as well, only because this is when leaders are born, right? When your back is against the wall, and I like the part when Cyclops was actually losing the team, like everything was just going all over the place, and he's trying to figure everything out. For me, not having Xavier there, but yet bringing him back, showing how much of an importance his part is to this school and to these mutants. I thought it was great because it ends up showing exactly what Cyclops can be as a leader and where the X-Men is going to go. So at first, I loved it only because they continued the story from season 3.
So to piggyback off of both of what you guys said about Cyclops, it finally, because I think he's a great character, great look, great mutant ability, and he came out guns blazing, and they finally gave him his shine. He's not crying about Jean, or he's not in the background because in the movies, of course, Wolverine stole the show. It was It was honestly, it was so much centered. It was so centered on Wolverine that they even made an animated series, Wolverine and the X-Men, because Wolverine he's the most popular X-Men. Come on, he looks cool. He's got fucking claws coming out. his hands. Like he looks badass. He looks cool. So I get it. But Cyclops was kind of pushed to the back. I love the fact that he came out and they showed him how awesome he can be and him being a leader because he is the leader of the X-Men. I mean, I think
Cyclops was so dope. I didn't want Xavier to come back.
yeah, that's a good
I
point.
didn't want
Yeah.
Xavier to come back. Like when they brought back Xavier, I was like, oh, now we're gonna get this banter between Magneto and Xavier all over again. I didn't want that. I didn't want that. I've heard it throughout the movies. I've heard it 1,000 times in the comic books. I didn't want Xavier to come back. I like seeing the downfall of Cyclops, like you said, Cole, trying to reel in the team, and he showed his frustration when he got interviewed. He was already frustrated with every situation that was going on. I like that he was a focal point in this show and his leadership capabilities. And again, it's not easy. Heavy is the head that wears the crown, they say.
Yeah.
And I didn't want Xavier to come back. Like, come on, Xavier, stay in space.
You also got to understand the X stands for Xavier, so we kind of need him to be the teacher.
It's his crib.
Yeah, and they're living rent free, so they're good. They're good.
They just got to pay the property tax.
They don't got jobs.
New York is expensive.
And they're in Westchester, bro. They're in Westchester. Again, finally, I think Cyclops finally got his due. Again, he's always been pushed to the back because of the popularity of Wolverine. But I do, and now that you bring up the banter between Magneto and Xavier, and again, they go back, I think we know they go back in different iterations. They've showed how they've met and stuff like that. But so this one's for Cole. Magneto shows up and says, Charles left everything to me. What did you think about that?
All right, so given the history of what I know Xavier to be, right? Again, fighting for the same thing but two different coins. Magneto is by far my favorite villain of all time. Wow. And the reason for this is because he fights for his people, not because of power, not to take over the world, but he fights and he stands for his mutants. See, the beauty about mutants and the X-Men series from a comic book perspective, TV show, movie, and all, is that it shows a separation between humanity within themselves, right? So for me, when I'm watching this, I'm loving the fact that Magneto is coming in and saying, hey, well, I'm inheriting this. This is mine. I'm taking over. If I was a mutant, I probably would be in the Brotherhood and fight for my brother mutants, period. But with him coming around and claiming it was cool because we also, again, need Cyclops to be pressed. If no one's pressing you, then how are you going to step up as a leader? And with Magneto coming in and asking, I think he has every right to, because what other person that is there for me and my mutants? So I loved it. I love that he went and tried to take what is deservingly his, and that was his family.
Well, the thing about I did like the banter between the both of them. But the thing we do know, like you said, they're on opposite sides. Their philosophies are different, but they do have respect for each other, which is why he left him. He left it in his will. He was in his will that he left him the stuff, and I was just like, wow, that's crazy to me. But that shows that showed the amount of respect he had for him. Doesn't agree with his ways, and you'll see it later in the series how he kind of went off And but that just showed to me the respect that he had for him.
You know,
So
can I just say something
yeah,
real quickly? Martin Luther King and Malcolm X, they both went for the same agenda, different ways. Magneto is the Malcolm X of this.
By any means necessary.
Yes. And that's, where I see, I like how you notice the respect that Professor X gives him because, he might not agree with his ways, but he damn sure knows that nobody loves mutants more than Magneto.
yeah.
Can I piggyback a question for you guys then? So, if that's the case and that's the respect that he had for Eric, Magneto, does that mean he didn't respect or trust Cyclops?
Well, they said it that he when that question was, because that was going to be my next question. So
Segue.
this is to you. This is to you, Puba. This is to you. Was Scott justified in being upset with him when he came back, when Xavier finally came back? Was he justified in being upset that he didn't leave it to him and he left it to Magneto?
100%. 100%. Here's the thing. The X-Men are known to fight Magneto. That is the villain and the heroes. That is the jest of it all. It's X-Men, which is Xavier representation, and Magneto and the Brotherhood. That is the rivalry. You're saying that in our case, we're okay with Big Papi being a Yankee. And I know both of you wouldn't accept that. So how could Scott accept the person that he's known to be on the opposite side of what they stood for to bring him in, when Cyclops is easily known that he's the leader of the X-Men? It's the same way we know that Leonardo is the leader of the Ninja Turtles.
Well,
Again,
Wade Boggs did play for the Yankees and they won a chip. So I think I'm okay with it if you're playing on my team.
More baseball references.
Not for me.
But no, I would be upset that it's like I work for Nike, and then all of a sudden the leadership comes from Reebok. Like, help me understand this. When our philosophies are absolutely different, to get to the same goal, but our philosophies, I would be. Here's the thing: Xavier should have kind of dropped this and said, Scott, you're the leader of the X-Men. I need a leader for the school. If something happens to me, it's going to be Eric. I don't want to be blindsided. That conversation, like, Scott should have known that was going to happen. Scott being blindsided by a will and not knowing is messed up. I mean, the last thing that he said before he went to space was, I love you, my X-Men. But he could have said, hey, with me moving on, Scott, you're the leader of the X-Men. I need someone to be the leader of the school. I'm going to get Magnus to do this. So that I think it was messed up.
So, fun fact, when they're, back in the days when Stan Lee and Kirby are creating these characters, and Cole said it. I know when we spoke about Invincible, and we're speaking about their counterparts in Marvel and DC. Cole said it. He said it's hard to keep coming up with powers. So these guys were having problems coming up with origins. Like, oh, what were they going to get bit by a radioactive Wolverine, or what? They're going to have an accident in a lab again. So they said, you know what? Let's just have it that they're born with the powers, to kind of get them out of having to come up with a backstory of how they got their powers for each one. I thought that was cool, because back then, these guys are, they're cramming for ideas, and they just said, hey, you know what? Why don't they just be born with their powers?
Pete,
Which is a way out.
Can you explain it for the fans that don't know the difference between a hero and a mutant, so that people can understand what the difference is?
Well, a mutant is just I don't want to say it's a defect, but it's something that they're born with. But because if they don't do anything with it, they're not a hero.
Right.
If they don't, if they're just living their life, if they have a 9 to 5, but they're a mutant because they're born with this with an ability, they're not a hero.
Versus an accident, right?
Well, an accident. No, you're no. I don't know if I explained this the right way. It's kind of genetic. It's genetic. A mutation is genetic. But if Spider-Man got bit by a Spider-Man has amazing friends. I don't know if you remember, A Firestar is Born was the story of they gave her origin story. They what and part of that story was they went for a reunion to the X Mansion. And they said Spider-Man was like, "Yo, can I tag along?" They was like, "Nah, mutants only." Spider-Man's not a mutant because he wasn't born with his powers. That's the difference. So that's what they couldn't come up with a new story for everybody that they were creating. So they said, well, let's just this group of people were born with their power, with their mutation, which is genetic, not like Spider-Man or Iron Man. He
Or
bought his
Captain America, he was
Captain
implementing
America,
it.
exactly. They're not mutants because they weren't born with their ability. So this is the meat and potatoes of the series, and there's two sides to the spectrum. Remember It was episode 5. So there's two sides to this. There's Gambit and Rogue, and there's Gambit and and there's Rogue and Magneto. So Cole, your take on Gambit and Rogue.
Oh man, mon ami. Holy smokes. What a love triangle. Um, the love that Gambit has for Rogue is what you call unconditional. This man sees no flaw in this woman, and by all means will do anything and everything to be the perfect husband for her, be that person that will always protect her and provide. The relationship that they have is tough because Rogue uh, is trying to find out for herself. And the problem with Rogue, well, I want to say it lightly, right? But she has some insecurities about her. And I understand that her powers are able to harm other people. But for those like Remy, which is AKA Gambit, is showing that regardless of whatever, I guess I would love to touch you, but I don't need to touch you. I just need you around me. You are me. Their relationship right there, that bond is a great example of what love should be. On Rogue's part, I totally get it. But I want to quote Chris Rock on this one. You know, the relationship only works if two people are working on it. Two people can move a couch. It's a little more difficult with one. Shout out to Chris Rock. And with those two characters right there, they've been a bond from the jump. And you know, the sacrifice that Gambit did. Uh, wow. I mean, I was blown away by it. And that's like the true measure of love. So with them two, I kind of wish that they would have, you know, ride off to the sunset.
So Pooba, now you're on the other side here. Cole just covered Gambit and Rogue. Now, this was something because we all always knew about Gambit and Rogue. His kind of infatuation with her, but it's it's coming from both sides because she loves him too. It's not a question that he's just being a creep and he's always sweating her. No, she loves him too. Pooba's gone. So Pooba, now we're going back on the opposite side to you. Now that you're back, we're gonna ask you about the relationship between Magneto and Rogue. Cole just spoke about Gambit and Rogue, but now your side, your view on their relationship, Magneto and Rogue.
First of all, let me say this. I'm a fan of Gambit and Rogue. I love their relationship. But I'm going to base this off a conversation that we had about Invincible on a prior episode. Does Adam, Eve, and Invincible make sense? And it did, right? We all agreed to that. I think it makes sense here. The one thing that Rogue longs for more than anything else is touch, because she doesn't get a chance to do that. Magneto offers that. Magneto's a mutant, just like she is. It makes sense. And I think for the most part, Rogue, who's so powerful, right? She's, I think, one of the most underrated X-Men. She now gets an opportunity to be with someone just as strong in Magneto. They are a true power couple. It was dope when they were dancing with each other in Genosha. It looked, you were like, wow, I didn't think that would make sense, but it makes sense. And I know that she kind of left him because he has some inner demons that he can't, that she mentioned that she can't deal with. But in an overall aspect, if you just take a step back and look, Magneto and her make sense. It does make sense for them to be together, to rock out with each other, because he can offer something that nobody else can, and that is that physical touch, which is one of the ways to show love, is physical touch. And I think Rogue longs for that for so much that if you could give her something that no one else can, then be with her. I think it's Magneto's ideology that makes her stay away, because she wants to be a hero. But it was dope to see them together. It wasn't cringe. It wasn't like, this doesn't make any sense. You got it. And I think for the most part, Rogue, who wants to be accepted as a mutant, and Magneto gives her that, the sense of it's okay to be a mutant. And their storyline, I think, has a lot more to do with lust and passion versus love, but it does make sense for them to be together.
I will say this, in this episode, like I said, this is the episode that everybody was talking about when this series was out. It's episode 5, Remember It, and they're in Genosha. Nightcrawler's introduced or reintroduced, and it's really that episode is really that good. From that episode, and we're talking about Gambit and Rogue, they had an incredible dialogue about their relationship in that episode. That episode, I could watch that over and over again. That's how good it was from beginning to end. And we did, and in this series, we did see this, what Magneto can offer Rogue. And like Puba said, it is important. You want to show love at times, and Gambit can't do it because he doesn't offer. Magneto kind of puts a protective layer over him that allows him to touch Rogue, which to me was just crazy. One side note, whenever Magneto's using his powers, or whenever something is being used by Magneto, it's yellow. I don't know why, I thought that was dope in the animation. I thought that was cool. So 10 episodes, like Puba said. The end of it is where it was a 3-parter. The last 3 episodes are kind of like the finale of this series, and a phenomenal series. My opinion is it was just great all around, phenomenal. I can't wait for season 2. Bastion, Cole, have you ever heard of this guy?
No. Actually, remind me of who he is.
So he turned out to be after Genosha. We put spoilers in our descriptions.
That's right.
He turned out to be the main antagonist of this series, which is Bastion, and he's from what I understand, Pooba, he's half Sentinel.
He's half Sentinel, half mutant. He is
Yes.
a mutant as well.
So that's he turned out to be the main, and he actually had Magneto captive after Genosha. Everybody thought he was dead. Turned out he wasn't. He was captured by Bastion, who, like I said, turned out to be the main antagonist of this series. So at the end of this, Magneto went to recruit. We already know Cole's side. Cole said he would go with Magneto. Pooba. So I'll go to Pooba now. What would you have done?
I'm human, so I'm not a mutant in that sense of the word.
No,
I
but what if you are? But what if you
Yeah,
are
putting
mutant?
yourself in their shoes.
You're
okay, so
mutant.
Magneto put it out
I
there.
am a mutant. So in this case
Yeah.
scenario, I am a mutant.
Yes.
Again, I lean towards doing right. I'll go with with great power goes great responsibility, right? And going against humankind is not a responsibility. And I get you have to protect your brotherhood because again, I would protect the three of us, in a heartbeat over
They're
anything
going
else.
against us.
Well, if they're
We're
going against us,
minding
they
our own
lose.
business. We're
Yeah,
minding our business,
they just got
Pooba.
their asses whipped by a bunch of goddamn nerds. All right, so this is tough. Wow, this is a great question because I'm enthralled by the X-Men. It's one of the, again, I'll go back and say that this is one of the comic books that my father collected, from Uncanny X-Men to regular X-Men to even the New Mutants. Wow. I would be on the side of where Wolverine, Beast, and Jubilee are. I'd probably be at the school looking at all this happen and trying to figure out how do we come back from it. I would definitely go against Bastion because, again, I'm not for genocide, which is what occurred on Genosha, of mutants. So I would definitely, because there's so, I know me, I like to learn, I like to read. I probably would wind up being at the school. I wouldn't be at the party, but I would probably be part of the team that goes after Bastion for sure, to stop this whole Sentinel. I mean, that's probably the most powerful Sentinel I've ever seen, with the three heads and things of that nature. So I would be on the side of the second team coming in to kind of support that, because I would definitely have not joined the Brotherhood. I would not have. I definitely would have been on Xavier's school learning, be in the danger room with Wolverine. But I would definitely, I'd be on the second team going there because I would never want to have gone to that party, knowing that there's one Magneto is heading over there. There are people there who hate us on the government side of things. Um,
Hmm.
Although I am all for meeting up with friends, right? I try never to miss travel to meet up with friends. But no, man, that's a tough question. But I would definitely be on the Xavier side of it. I would definitely be on the team that's going to, I forget the name of the Sentinel now that they call it, but it's like, but yeah, I definitely wouldn't have been on Bastion's team for this. Not at all. Not even close to it.
So this is final question, and this is for both of you guys. And I'll go with Cole first. Who do you want to see in season 2 that we didn't see in season 1?
Excellent. I just want to say, I want before I answer that question, I want to talk a little bit about Genosha. I think Genosha is such a dope concept where mutants is like, all right, you don't want us around. Let us just have our own space. And it's a city of just brotherly love and sisterly love, and it's us, and we're away from society. Genosha to me is brilliant. Again, Eric, by far my favorite villain of all time is Magneto because of how he goes about his business, even though he's looked at as a villain. Um, Second, I want to talk about one more time the animation. So look at this picture of Morph in the original X-Men in Fox. And now look at the picture of Morph in X-Men 97. See the difference? And this is why I was loving the animation about it. So to conclude, right? I'm gonna ask that question. What was the question again?
The
Fans?
question is, who do you want to see in season 2 that you didn't see in season 1?
Deadpool.
Hmm.
Bring him into it. He's already been introduced. He's part of it. He's a mutant.
Yep. It's a mutant.
I would love to see Deadpool stir shit up or come help out or kill them all. Regardless, that would be the most anticipated character to see for season 2.
Okay.
For me, would be him.
Okay, perfect. Good answer. Great answer. Because I wasn't even thinking Deadpool, because people forget he's a mutant because you don't really see him with the X-Men like that. But he is a mutant. He is a mutant. Good answer.
Thank you.
Booba, so final thoughts and same question to you. Who do you want to see in season 2 that you didn't see in season 1?
I know they tease Sinister, so I'm going to leave that out. I'm not going to say Sinister. I will say the Brood, the alien race, the Brood that went against the X-Men. That I do want to see. I think that's such a great storyline for the X-Men, who are known to travel outside of the universe a lot, more than probably the Avengers, I think. But the Brood, I want to see that whole series kind of play out. The series for X-Men 97 and my thought process, like Madeline Pryor was such a big thing. And they gave away what I think is called Inferno, which came out in X-Men 240. It was a crossover event where she turns into the Goblin Queen. So I think that stuff was rushed. I think I would have liked them to take their time with the storyline. There's so much they could have unpacked. You mentioned Morph. Like when Morph changed into Jean Grey when he was by Wolverine's bedside and was like, "Don't die, I love you." Just because I guess it's a known thing that Wolverine has a super crush on Jean Grey, that he actually used that, which I think they dove a little bit into it when she kissed him in the water when she was thinking about Scott as well. So again, there's so much there to unpack, but they rushed through it so fast, and I thought there were just some really beautiful moments that they could have kept there. And the one thing I think is that you can trust whoever wrote this. I forget the guy's name, who's no longer part of the X-Men, but he did write
DeMaio.
Yes, thank you. Shout out to him because he wrote season 2 and they let him go.
Yes, season 2. I'm not stay on that point, but just to go off what you're saying, he wrote season 1, which was phenomenal. I believe a good part of season 2, but then they started bumping heads and he was let go. So go ahead.
Yeah, no. So and just kind of like Aurora, who's Storm losing her powers, and then 2 weeks later we get an episode that she got it back. Like that should have taken. She should have to give us the impact of what that felt like. I think she should have got her in the last episode. Like they could have waited a little bit longer. Give us that. Oh, it's back, right? And one of the great things that we love about Magneto is that Magneto disappears at times, and when he comes back, it's so relevant and so wow. But this was different because Magneto was leading the X-Men. I get that portion of it. I just feel like they kept the core things of the X-Men. I think the animation was the best we've ever seen the X-Men. But those intricate relationships and the things that were happening, I think for the most part, it should have been spread out because there's different storylines that are happening here. Like I just said, the Inferno portion of it, it felt rushed. But I feel like they had to get this out to show, hey, we could do this X-Men 97 and make it stick. I hope this next second season, they don't rush it. They kind of put everything in it and extend it and understand you can make this run for a good 5-6 years because the X-Men also has one of the best rogue villains for them as well, being mutants. So in a nutshell, loved it. Glad they did it, but it was rushed. And I think they could have taken their time with these storylines to give themselves such a boost going into the second season. That's my take on it. But it's definitely a must-watch if you love Marvel, if you love the idea of mutants. And shout out to Stan Lee because he made the mutants because of the racism that was happening in the United States. He wanted to show how if something was just different, looked and felt like us, whether they're white, blue, red, or solid metal, would they have been treated differently, even though they're just trying to be heroes? And, you know, in that first episode where Magneto shows his power, and he's not showing his power like I could take over the world. He's showing his power that hey, we can control this. We're not all monsters, even though you see me as a monster. So I think for the most part, it was a great story. I loved it. I just wish they would have broken this down, because they could have made this 10 episodes into 20 episodes, and we could have enjoyed it more if they broke it down. That's my only take on it.
Who I want to see is Colossus. I want to see Colossus. One of my favorite X-Men is Colossus. You know, we saw Gambit. He's one of my favorite as well. But who wasn't in season 1 for me is Colossus. I'm not on the same page with you as far as it felt rushed. From when I look at a series, and there's some things that sometimes a series can have side stories, and they're setting up something down the line. So the Madeline Pryor that you touched on, you know, Cable was a big part of this. And again, we didn't get into everything because we kind of do want you. We want you to watch it. We want you to enjoy it the same way we did. But I see that more as like a side story. I don't necessarily see that it was rushed, but it's not just going to be the same exact story going through 10 episodes. That's how I see it. I didn't think it was rushed. I just saw it was just this is a sidebar here. They may get back to this later. May get back to this in season 2. There's another sidebar over here. That's how I see it. You know, it was just enjoyable all around. Animation, the acting was awesome. Awesome. And I got to give props to them because, again, they brought back a lot of the same actors. Unfortunately, there were some that aren't with us anymore. Of course, they weren't able to bring them back. But for the most part, they brought a lot of the same actors back. And what I touched on earlier was Wolverine and the X-Men. Wolverine was extremely popular when they came out with the live action movie, and there was a point where it was just all about Wolverine. And this was not about Wolverine, which was good. Not that I have a problem with Wolverine, but this is the X-Men, and he's just one of many, and he's part of the team, and he's not the focal point, which I thought was a breath of fresh air, to be quite honest. Cyclops finally getting his shine, and again, we have Cable, we have Storm losing her powers, Madeline Pryor. There's a lot more to it than what we spoke about. Disney Plus, very well received. Season 2 is coming out next year. Guys, thank you again for joining us down memory lane, because this one was last year and it was a continuation from 97. And thank you for tuning in. Please like, share, subscribe, and we will return. Cole, Puba, Pete.
Come to me, my X-Men.
We will return.
The worst episode ever.